Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Let me get organized here. Senate Bill number 283 would decrease individual income tax rates, discontinue tax credits of the High Performance Incentive Program, or HPIP, discontinue tax credits of the Kansas Affordable Housing Tax Credit Act, discontinue payroll withholding tax benefits of the Promoting Employment Across Kansas Act, or PEAK, discontinue crediting of certain amounts to the Job Creation Program Fund, and repeal certain other tax credits. Individual income tax. Section 6 of the bill would amend 7932.110 to decrease the second bracket of individual income tax rates over time. Currently, the first bracket is at 5.2%, and the second bracket is at 5.58%. The bill would decrease this second bracket or top bracket rate to 5.53% for tax year 25, to 5.45 for tax year 2026, to 5.35 for tax year 2027, and for tax year 2028 and thereafter, that rate would go to 5.2%, but because that matches the lower bracket rate, there would no longer be brackets. It would just be a 5.2% individual income tax rate. With respect to HPIP training and education credit and investment tax credit, Section 3 amends 7450.132 to discontinue the income, premium, and privilege tax credits of the HPIP program relating to training and education of the firm's employees. This discontinuation would happen after tax year 2025. Section 7 amends KSA 7932.160A to discontinue HPIP tax credits for investments in a qualified business facility after tax year 2025, except that for taxpayers who have excess unused credits pursuant to a credit that was initially claimed before January 1st of 2026, the credit carry forward provisions would still apply to those taxpayers. Also, the bill provides that no transfer of credits would be allowed after December 31st of 2025. But again, the carry forward provisions would apply to transferees who received excess unused, or have excess unused tax credits pursuant to a transfer that occurred before January 1st of 2026. Regarding the Kansas Affordable Housing Tax Credit, Section 8 of the bill amends 7932.306 to discontinue the Kansas Affordable Housing Tax Credit. Discontinue the act on April 1st of 2025, except again that the provisions shall continue to apply through the credit period and any applicable carry forward period of a Kansas Affordable Housing Tax Credit allocation that was awarded to the owner of a qualified development by the KHRC before April 1st of 2025. Sections 4 and 5 amend KSA 7450.212 and 5213. These portions of the Promoting Employment Across Kansas Act, or PEAK, these relate to qualified companies' eligibility and applications for payroll withholding tax benefits. The bill would amend those provisions to provide that the Secretary of Commerce shall not approve any applications for benefits, enter into any agreements for benefits, nor grant any additional benefits on or after July 1st of 2025. Section 2 would amend KSA 7450.107 to discontinue the crediting of certain amounts from the withholding tax to the Job Creation Program Fund for fiscal year 2026. The bill would also repeal certain tax credits. You may recognize the names of some of these credits. I believe they appear on a Department of Revenue list of recently unused tax credits, if I recall correctly. And so there is a list here of, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think 7 additional tax credits that would be discontinued after tax year 2025. Our understanding is that based on the information from the Department of Revenue, that those have been recently not used. And they may be able to adopt if there's any updated information on that. I have also attached for your information a copy of those provisions to the back of this memorandum should you feel you would like to look at those. There is one particular tax credit that is actually an amendment to the statute because there is a substantive provision within that statute still that remains. And the bill would take effect from and after publication in the Kansas Register, and I would be happy to stand for questions.
Questions for Amelia? Thank you, Amelia. Committee, I'm going to put the Department of Revenue on the spot a little bit here. We don't have a fiscal note. Do you anticipate when we would have one, Kathleen? Thank you. And I know it was short turnaround, very short. We do have an estimate by Eddie, and I will give that out.
Okay, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Kathleen Smith with the Department of Revenue. We are finalizing our estimate right now, and then it'll be passed on to the Division of Budget. I would assume we'd have something probably within the next couple days.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kathleen, and sorry for the short turnaround. Thank you. Eddie, do you mind addressing, just based off of previous bills, I know it'll have to be updated by revenue, but do you mind giving us an overview? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm just going to be reading numbers. I don't have anything written for the committee, but this is based upon comparable bills in prior years for some of these provisions and other bills this year for some of them. But there are in essence, kind of four provisions that have fiscal impacts on this on the revenue positive side, and then obviously one provision on the revenue negative side. On the revenue positive side, the peak and HPIP provisions are similar to those in SB 546 last year. At that point in time, the estimates were for a reduction of receipts on the peak side between 7 and 8 million in the first year, between 14 and 15 million in the second year, between 22 and 23 million in the third year, and then between 29 and 30 million in the fourth year. On the HPIP side, it was between 26 and 27 million year one, 53 to 54 million year two, approximately 80 million in year three, and then between 106, 107 million in year four. On the JCPF side, that actually is relatively straightforward. That's $20 million per year. And then the final revenue positive provision is the low income housing tax credit. HB 2119 has similar provisions. That bill, as introduced, had an estimated positive fiscal impact of 12.6 million in the second year, no impact in the first year, 41.3 million in the third year, and 69.1 million in the fourth year. The dates associated with this are a little different, so I would anticipate those numbers being somewhat different as well. So that's the total. That's all of the revenue positive provisions. The revenue negative provisions, for each 0.01% rate reduction, the kind of annualized impact on that from earlier this session, the Department of Revenue's indicated is between $6 and $6.5 million per year once fully implemented. If it's retroactive, the first year is larger. If it's not retroactive, the first year is smaller. And so you can kind of do the math on that based upon just multiplying the number of hundredths of percents that the bill reduces those rates. I believe it is it 0.05% the first year, 0.13% the second year, 0.23% the third year, and 0.38% in year four and all years thereafter, I believe. So just multiplying those out by about 6 to 6.5 million per year gets you the revenue negative side of the bill.
Right. So it would be a tax cut, income tax cut, and the credits would pay for the cut so that it would not impact state revenues, or it would be a negligible impact.
In any given year, the positives and the negatives are not going to match up perfectly. And this is very dependent upon if the peak and HPIP numbers have changed since last year, and also if the exact kind of phase in of the low income housing piece, in light of this not being identical to to either 2119 as introduced or 2119 as amended. So there's a lot of moving pieces to it, but it's kind of oriented in that general direction. And as Kathleen noted, they'll have their estimate here within a couple of days, and we'll have a better idea of exactly how close to zero it is at that point.
Committee, any questions? Seeing none, we'll have our first conferee. Proponent is written testimony, Dave Trobert. I'll draw your attention to it, and we'll start with the opponents. Joshua Jefferson, welcome to the Tax Committee.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, it's a pleasure to be here today from the blunt force winds outside, so thank you for having me here today. Again, my name is Joshua Jefferson. I am the Deputy Secretary of the Kansas Department of Commerce. It is a pleasure to be here today in front of the committee. I appreciate the time this morning to testify in opposition of SB 283. There's a couple of things associated with this bill that I think from our standpoint are problematic, but ending programs like PEAK, HPIP, and JCF really crush established Kansas companies, but also really sends the wrong message to the economic development world, but also the business community as well outside of Kansas. One of our biggest proponents that we have going for us within Kansas is the momentum that has been generated into Kansas over the last few years. I actually came from another state. I came from the state of Arizona that has similar programs such as these. There are other states, as a matter of fact, that have these types of programs. But I did come from another state, so I understand how these programs work outside of Kansas as well. I want to give a couple of quick facts and figures for the committee. In 2024, 34 companies signed new agreements for the promoting employment across Kansas with the PEAK program, and we currently have 200 active agreements that the Department of Commerce actively manages. Within the 34 agreements that were new last year, more than 2,800 PEAK jobs are projected to be created by the program. There are $228 million in direct annual payroll projected and more than $730 million in capital investments that were projected as part of this program as well. From the 200 active agreements that we manage, more than 30,000 jobs have been created or retained in Kansas. 54%, I think this is an important metric, 54% of those 30,000 jobs, which is approximately 16,000, have been created or retained from existing companies within the state of Kansas. The ROI of this is around $39.8 million of withholding retained by PEAK participant companies in 2024 for fiscal year. It is estimated to be over, the impact is estimated to be over $2.3 billion, including over $175 million into the state and local tax revenue and $38 billion in growth to the Kansas economy. I did include in my testimony a few charts that will walk you through the past few years for the PEAK agreements, all the way dating back to 2019 there. So if you are curious, you can reference that as well. The High Performance Incentive Program, or HPIP for short, was designed to really provide tax incentives to qualifying employers that pay above average wages. The program provides a 10% tax credit to qualifying capital investment to an eligible company. There is a minimum investment threshold to qualify of $1 million for metropolitan counties. For all other counties in the state, there's an investment threshold of $50,000. Up to 16 years, the tax credit can be carried forward, provided the company can certify with HPIP, and then credits earned in 2021. These credits can be sold or transferred up to 50% of these tax credits as well. There is a nice graph that, or a chart that shows the HPIP projects and the project certifications by Commerce dating back to fiscal year 2019 within my testimony as well for you. And the Job Creation Fund, or JCF for short, this fund is really a program that exists today to provide the state a little bit of capabilities to bridge the gap when we are competing against other states on major projects that create jobs here in Kansas. This program was really created in 2011 by combining the Major Projects and Comprehensive Training, or IMPACT Fund, and then the Kansas Economic Opportunity Initiative Fund. And the purpose really like we talked about, is essentially to be a deal closing fund for the state of Kansas. I will say that 23 other states within the United States have similar deal closing funds such as this. They are called likely something different, but it is incredibly relevant to indicate that to the committee. One other important point of the JCF fund that we've measured, for every dollar spent by the state, you can expect the ROI to be about $40.97 in the Kansas economy associated with the companies that have actually received those funds. Much like the other programs, I did provide a table that gives you some statistics within the last fiscal year of 2024 as well. In short, to summarize some of the points that I've made today, one of the misconceptions about some of these programs are really primarily that these programs only incent new businesses, and that is definitely false. These programs really are truly for both recruiting new companies to Kansas, but also support existing business growth and expansion within Kansas as well. That number for existing companies is right around 54%. In the peak list at the end of the testimony, you can also find the details regarding 126 of existing expansions for fiscal year 24, and then the other 89 other agreements in there as well. Additionally, both peak and HPIP are really utilized across the state. So it's important to emphasize that we have distribution across the state. Yes, given populations, some of the more metropolitan counties do see a lot of the investment utilized through these programs. But it's important to recognize that the PEAK program is utilized in 34% of the counties in Kansas, and HPIP is utilized in 61% of the counties in Kansas as well. The graph following that will, or the chart showing that will give you an indication of where those investments have been made within Kansas. And then in closing, 40 states in the U.S. have economic development tools similar to PEAK and HPIP. Again, they may be called something different, but generally they are designed in a similar fashion to have similar clawbacks and to have similar sort of qualifying components associated with them to ensure that the states remain competitive in there. They are a tool, and then at least 23 states have that JCF tool that I indicated earlier. So ending these three programs, again, to our perspective, it really, what we do for economic development with the state, it's all about momentum. That cliche statement of momentum breeds momentum. In the past few years, Kansas has really seen itself on top, and we are pushing that momentum forward. Ending these programs, really, what that does is that takes a step backwards. Not only will these new businesses not want to come to the state of Kansas, but our established companies will also look to grow their operations outside of Kansas where these types of incentive programs currently exist. Our state's economy is trending in the right direction, but eliminating both of these programs, or I'm sorry, all three of these programs, for both existing companies and new businesses would immediately stop this momentum forward. We urge the committee to oppose SB 283, and I'll stand for questions.
Any questions? Senator Schallenberger.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you very much for being here. It's nice to see you. I'll just take one of these, for example. I'm looking at a post audit from, I don't know when it was here, January 25, pretty recent. And the numbers just don't seem to add up. And I can understand you, HPIP, you saying they utilize it. Well, anybody, you offer them money, they'll take it. I mean, I'll utilize it if you'll give me $25. But this says for every dollar we pay, we forego in taxes, we get 35 cents back. That's a loser. So if this money churns over as much as you say it is, where's it going? I mean, how can post audit say for every dollar you forego in tax revenue, you generate 35 cents in tax revenue?
Senator Schallenberger, I appreciate that comment. I don't have the post-audit report in front of me, so I can't really comment to the details that are within. But I will say, when we go through these types of projects, we do have significant economic impact analyses that are done by our research team. We can certainly give you some information that may support what you're referring to.
That would be useful. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd also like to see your math on your return on investment because the numbers don't add up. And I would also ask too, on the transferability, do you know, another item that was in the audit was there was $3 billion given away in 2 years. So those $3 billion tax credits can be collected at any time within the next 16 years. Do you have a inkling of what that would do to the state budget if they all decided to come in the next 2 years?
Madam Chair, I appreciate that. I don't have the information that you're referring to. We do have obviously a transparency database though that does have how and where and when these programs are utilized. Certainly from the committee standpoint, if I would refer you to reference that information as well.
Senator Ware.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. So let's say that this passed and these programs were no longer available, is there anything that we currently have to function the way that these do? Is there any, is there any replacement for these?
Senator Ware, I appreciate that. Right now, there are some other programs that exist. There are what's called KIT or KER, the Kansas Industrial Training or retraining, but that is specifically for training associated with that. That is by no means meant to replace or be a replacement for these programs. These are really in the hopper for the state of Kansas. These are the only programs that exist today to keep Kansas competitive.
A second, if I may.
Yes.
So might the ROI have factors beyond just tax revenue included, investments in the community, the ripple effect that we always see anytime we start a new business? Is it that kind of thing, or are there more factors involved, do you suppose?
Absolutely, that's a great question and a fantastic point that you make. You are absolutely correct. The economic impact of these types of investments on the community both have direct and indirect benefits, both to the community, to the workforce, to suppliers, and to those direct companies as well. It's challenging to create a line-for-line comparison, but we do economic impact analyses in a lot of our projects and the work that we do to ensure that we can demonstrate what the impacts are to the community. Last year, as far as economic benefit and committed capital investment by the use of these programs into Kansas was right around $3.5 to $3.6 billion with a B. And that is incredibly important. That is net new investment into Kansas in that way, which was otherwise not in existence. That's a majority of that can be tailored to both expansion activity through these programs and then also attraction of new business and new job creation into Kansas as well. So you are 100% correct in your analysis of the economic benefit associated with these programs have really a large net of benefit associated with them. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I'd like to see a breakdown of that $6 billion because I know Apex was used in that number too yet, and we haven't seen anything from that yet. It's still under production. So if you could get us a breakdown of that. Senator Klemp.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Josh. I think to the comments from Senator Schallenberger as well as Senator Tyson, there's probably a comparison. That's not a good term. There's probably an opinion that is needed on the post-audit versus your perspective or the Department of Commerce's perspective, because I do think there's a disconnect there that we need to connect those dots to understand why your numbers are very different, and there may be logical reasons for that, but it'd be nice to see that.
Sure, absolutely. I think it's important to note just again the economic impacts that are used in the analyses, and we can help kind of tie those lines as to what goes into our analyses with that. Yeah.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Joshua.
Madam Chair, thank you.
Oh, you did make a statement that this is the only tools available, but from your own website, in a 5-year period, there's a list of grants and other tools that totaled over $11 billion given away. So there are other tools available. And maybe the committee could, you could send the URL to the website so the committee could look at that report. Senator Schallenberger.
Thank you. It just reminded me of something that I had this conversation with the governor's office at one time, but let's take HPIP. Let's take any of these. Let's let's take Apex, let's take Panasonic. I will give this to the Department of Commerce. It's not been a better, more aggressive Department of Commerce in my history. Now, you've had a lot of money to give away, and people will take it. But it never shows up. All these things, all this grandiose 40,000 jobs, never shows up in the consensus estimates. We never show where that's going to make our economy better. Now, at least the state's revenue better. Why is that? I mean, why do we go out and we get this thing and the governor says it's going to be $3 billion worth of benefit to the state and the revenue estimates stay flat? Do you not connect to revenue? Are we just giving it all away? Is that, I know this is not a very clear question, but why does all of this economic boon that we hear about not show up in revenue estimates? The revenue estimates are made up of typical tax revenue, general withholding, sales tax, and when you ask where is the Apex, where is the Panasonic in it, it's, we figure that's a push. That's what they tell me. Can you enlighten us?
So I can't speak to the Department of Revenue. I can tell you from the Department of Commerce's perspective, as we go through this and we run through these types of programs and we measure what the anticipated economic benefit to the state and to the local communities are. A lot of times there are benefits that can be kind of showcased from the local community side. I think your question more is along the lines, and please correct me if I'm wrong, just where's the disconnect between commerce and maybe revenue? Is that the?
Yeah, when you're defining benefit, should there not be some increased revenue to the state if all this spent, if 7 times we give them the property and they don't pay property tax, they don't pay sales tax on their equipment, they don't pay inventory tax, we give them the withholding back, but you say, but look at all the growth. Where's the growth showing up at? Because it doesn't show up either.
Sure. Yeah. So thank you for the clarification. There is a direct correlation to the time associated with when that economic benefit is really recognized into the state of Kansas, and that's pretty traditional across the U.S. as well with these types of programs. Our intent is to get the companies to locate here or expand here so that they entrench themselves into Kansas, so that the future economic benefit, when these programs and the benefit associated with them are limited by statute, ensure that that benefit remains in Kansas. So typically it's a kind of a delayed benefit associated with that, but there are direct or indirect benefits to some of the local communities. Panasonic is a perfect example. The County of DeSoto and the City of DeSoto has reduce the property tax associated with that due to the Panasonic and the sales tax increases with all of the construction work that has happened on site. So there are direct benefits to these types of projects, but direct benefits to the states, as your point, typically that is a delayed benefit associated with them, but our job is to get them here so that that benefit exists in the future. Good answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next is Tony Adams.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and committee members. My name is Tony Adams. I am the founder and chairman and president of Golden Waves Grain. And this is a kind of a unique story. Everybody's been pretty technical to this point, but I'm a former quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. And while I was there, I went through the Leadership Kansas program. And while I was out in Goodland, Kansas, I ran into a couple other former Leadership Campus graduates, and Alan Townsend and Brian Lennon. As we were talking about the economic development aspects of Goodland, one of them was that they were involved with a company called 21st Century Bean, which, if you're not aware of it, they're the largest supplier of pinto beans to the U.S. government. Well, when we go through Leadership Kansas, we learned about all the economic aspects of the state, and that part of the state was the wheat production. So my question to them was, where's your flour mill that you send all your wheat to get made into flour? And he said, well, we don't have one here. I said, well, what do we talk about designing and building a flour mill, but also let's add the bakery to it as well, commercial bakery. Because the system right now is over 100 years old in how we deliver bread throughout the country. And there's 15 steps that wheat and flour get touched before it's made into bread and delivered to any of the stores. Our system, which is a $160 million complex being built, we will hire 140 plus employees from the region out there, and we'll be paying them over an average of $43,000 per employee. So what we've done is really kind of brought information into there that we can develop a project that will enhance the western part of the state. But the best wheat, best hard red wheat grown in the state of Kansas is in that area. And after some tests that we have heard from other outside sources, it's the best hardwood red winter wheat grown in the United States and possibly around the world. So now we've got the ability to produce the highest grade of flour, and we can trace it to the exact farmer who harvested it. That's part of the program, is that we can go out to the farmers, because they'll be investors in this project, and then with their ability to be a part owner of this project, we'll be able to control the wheat that comes in there and the quality of wheat that it
We're
produces.
going to run out of time. Could you, on the bill?
Speed that up?
Yep.
Okay,
You've got quite a few people,
the
and
long and the short of it is this, the program that we're talking about, the HPIP, is beneficial to this effort of ours. Again, it's $160 million, and we're raising that money right as we speak. But the assets that are given to us by the HPIP is essential in our development and our financial stack. And we would love to see it stay, because it's going to make this project easier to develop. And this is the first of more than one of these projects we're going to build throughout the state of Kansas.
questions, committee. So you would not be developing this if you did not have HPIP?
It would be difficult for us to move forward with a lot of aspects in our financial stack and the development of the project.
Okay.
And we're well down the road, by the way.
So you've already got the tax credits from HPIP for this program, for this project?
We have a commitment from the state on some tax benefits, yes.
So the sunset would not impact that project?
Pardon me?
Sunset would not impact?
It would, because this is a 2-year build project. So it would have critical aspects of our development. Okay?
No?
And I apologize for the outcome of the Super Bowl. It's,
I just on a point of personal privilege, I don't know if you remember me.
I do.
Lindstrom was my running mate when I ran for governor. Tony was a great friend, so
Yeah.
good to see you again.
Good to see you too. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Next up is Josh Adrian. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Josh Adrian. I represent the Prime Company. We're a real estate development company based in Manhattan, Kansas. We employ over 100 people here and have been the benefit of a couple of these programs that you're talking about today. But I'm here specifically to talk about the LIHTC program and the cutting of funding to that. Sorry. The state of Kansas has been experiencing a housing crisis across the state, and I hear this from people from towns like St. John, Kansas, all the way here to Topeka and to Johnson County. It's in every community. Everywhere we go across the country, if you ask 10 people on the street, what's a problem plaguing your city, they're going to tell you housing. It's going to come up. The state implemented this program here a couple of years ago, and it has been a real boom to the state and getting projects done in the state. And as a developer, I'm just going to give you a developer's perspective on this project and why it should continue to be used. We're currently working on a project in Garden City, and the way that the bill is currently written, the last year of work on that project will be wiped out. Same for all the other developers, because these projects don't just come to fruition overnight. They take time to come together. And so That's certainly disarming as a developer who spent a lot of time and energy working with the city. Garden City has determined that it needs 4,000 new housing units by the year 2030 to accommodate the growth that's going from businesses coming in there. That might surprise you, surprises me, but it's true. That's what they've determined that they need. And there's a company called CoStar. It's a national company that tracks apartment and commercial real estate data. They showed that Kansas has averaged constructing only 2,700 apartments per year over the past 5 years. 89% of those units have been built in just 3 counties, Johnson, Wyandotte, and Sedgwick. So a town like Garden City needing 4,000 units, that's not going to be easy to do. Cities like Garden City, Hutchinson, Hayes, Dodge City, Leavenworth, Salina, Emporia, Junction City, Pittsburgh, Liberal, Great Bend, McPherson, El Dorado, Ottawa, these,
We can read your testimony.
okay,
Would you please tell us why you want the program to stay?
sure, thank you. So I think what it really comes down to here is that as a developer, I can only look at the economic impact of what that project does for me. I want to see it do great things for a whole community, but I can't look at that, right? At the end of the day, I have to make this project pencil. And as a developer in the state since 2005, it's been over 12 years since we've been able to make a project pencil in the state of Kansas until this program came, because the rents here just aren't that great. The cost of construction is high, and now with interest rates that have grown over the last few years, it's become nearly impossible to get a project done anywhere in the state. A program like this allows projects to happen in towns like Garden City, towns that need these kind of programs. And you, as the state, can look at the economic impact for the entire community where I can't. And you can say, hey, you know what, a little bit of funds here allows Garden City to have the housing, to have the labor, to have the jobs that these businesses coming in want to have. I'll also say that I am the beneficiary of the affordable housing program. During the Great Recession, my wife and I both lost our jobs. We started over in Manhattan, Kansas. She got a job as a secretary at a doctor's office. I got a job as an apartment maintenance tech. We would not have been able to make it without an affordable housing apartment complex in Manhattan where we lived. And living there a couple years, working hard, saving up money, we were able to buy a house. Now we go out to dinner a lot. We are a boon for the income and sales tax in Manhattan, Kansas. And it's because we were able to get a jump start through the affordable housing program. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee, any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Daniel Asia. And committee, I apologize to the rest of the conferees. You've got about 2 to 3 minutes because there's several that want to speak. So any new information that you have, that would be wonderful.
Thank you, Chair Tyson, Vice Chair, and the committee. Thank you for hearing the business community's input for proposed Senate bill. I'll make sure to keep this brief. There we go. How about now? Okay. Thank you for hearing the business community's input on this proposed Senate bill. My name is Daniel Asaya, and I'm the tax director for Ash Grove Cement Company. Ash Grove has been using the HPIP program for over 20 years, and since that time has invested hundreds of millions of dollars into the state of Kansas to upgrade and expand our Chanute, Kansas manufacturing facility. I'll keep this brief, but there are 2 main reasons why we'd like to see this program stay around. The first is capital allocation. We operate 12 cement plants across the U.S., and we have limited capital resources. These days, capital is hard to come by. We are looking to deploy up to $500 million over the next couple years, and if we want that money to come to Kansas, the HPIP is important. It adds one more weight to the scale for our Chanute plant to convince our leadership to invest in the state. We want to see Kansas-made cement for our local communities. The other reason is our customers. Our cement goes to a lot of large developers, business owners, and governmental agencies themselves. Without the HPIP, we fear many of these projects may not exist in Kansas and shift to other states. We are aware that other states like Nebraska, neighboring us, offer similar incentive programs like the Imagine Nebraska program. We'd like to recommend this committee reject any proposal that sunsets the HPIP program. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee, any questions? And even though this lowers income tax for all of your employees and people, you still don't want the sunset?
That's correct.
Okay, I just want to be clear. Thank you. Mark Jewell. Welcome to the Tax Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm the CFO for an aerospace company called Horizon Aerostructures. We have 3 locations in Kansas. We started in 2016 with no employees. Today, we have over 650 employees in the state of Kansas. Yes. Okay, very good, thank you. And we have committed to building factories. We have 300,000 square feet located in Chanute, Kansas. We have another 100,000 square feet located in Olathe. And these are some of the best factories in the aerospace industries. We have visitors from all over the world, and we would encourage the panel to come attend one of our town halls, speak to our constituency, and we think that you would feel the vibrancy that's within our company that has been a result of all of the effort that the state of Kansas has supported us on as we try to recruit in the rural communities. And we try to develop the mechanical skills that are inherent in these communities, and we try to turn them into aerospace experts. And they are building some of the biggest, most important products in aerospace. For example, on the 737 MAX, we were awarded the largest contract ever awarded by Boeing or Spirit, and that is to build Section 11, more commonly known as the wing box, where the wing box attaches to the fuselage. That is being done today in Chanute, Kansas, our assembly factory there. In addition, we make some of the most complex parts in the F-35 program.
Can you speak to the bill as to why you want the program to continue versus income tax cuts?
Yes, so the bill helped us create a $153 million investment in these communities. We now have added a location in Wichita. We've been able to grow to over 650 employees through the most difficult pandemic and unforgivable crashes that have happened in the industry, and many have not survived. And without the support, we would not have been able to survive through this, but not only survive, but grow and continue to provide careers that changes the lives for these families in these communities.
If I may, were there any other tax incentive programs that you were using besides this?
We participate in your booklet. We're showing the receipts that we have gotten with full transparency. The HPIP program, we've received about $11 million. And on the PEAK program, we received about $3 million. Okay?
Senator Schallenberger.
Thank you, and thank you for coming, and I have heard of you. And I'm Southeast Kansas, Cherokee, Bourbon, Crawford, and everybody that works for you is very proud, and we're happy to have you in Southeast Kansas. My question is this. We come to Topeka, and we get bombarded by some of the people in this room. You got to do something about that. You know, get the highest income tax rate in the region. You're higher than Missouri, you're higher than Oklahoma, you're higher. You got to get the income tax rate down. Okay. As long as we don't take something else away. Who's going to pay it? Would you prefer the income tax? So the income tax rate had nothing to do with you coming to Kansas?
No.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Scott Gales. Welcome to the tax.
Chairwoman Tyson and members of the Senate Assessment and Taxation Committee. My name is Scott Gales. I'm the 2025 President-elect and 2026 President of the American Institute of Architects for the Kansas chapter. I'm also the owner and president of Architect One, a Topeka-based architectural firm. Our firm was started in 1989, and we've had the good fortune of doing work throughout the state of Kansas, not just in Topeka. I'm here today because I want to testify on behalf of AIA Kansas in opposition to SB 283 Section 8, which eliminates the Kansas Affordability Tax Credit. I think what we want to emphasize here that the policies supporting the public investment in affordable housing as an essential component of the livable communities is a stabilizing force from edge to edge of the state. And we do work in nearly every county. And what I find in those communities where the tax credits are able to be leveraged to make sure that we have affordable housing, those small businesses and those entrepreneurs who are trying to grow and hire people, when they have introductory level positions and the salaries that are available are not necessarily at a level that people can build a home or buy a new home, that affordable housing is where they're able to bring their workforce in. Not everybody is thriving their business online. They're using labor, skilled labor sometimes, folks that are needing a second income for their family, and to be able to allow those smaller companies to continue to grow and thrive in all these other small towns throughout the Midwest and throughout Kansas is a difference maker in these communities, because sometimes that's the difference in several of the storefronts downtown being able to stay occupied and leased, or for those companies have to close shop and maybe move somewhere else. So what I want to highlight here is, since the establishment of the tax credit in 2022, we're aware, AIA Kansas is aware, that it has funded over 6,500 homes to be built in the state.
So,
I want to highlight.
We are out of time, but I do have a question for you. That
Fire away.
program from legislative post-audit and from
Yes, ma'am.
statements from the House Commerce Chairman will literally bankrupt the state. Would you prefer that that continue?
If you put it in the context of it's the tax credits or bankrupt the state, is the tax credits bankrupting the state?
They will. It's a 10-year, but I would also say that we're not getting rid of the federal portion. You would still be able to apply for that. But yes, it will. There's over $750 million that Kansas taxpayers are on the hook from these credits already.
I just would ask
That's a big
the committee
number.
to be mindful of the impact that they're having in these communities. So
Wonderful. I'm glad you said that. Any other comments or questions? Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Tim Henry. Committee, we have less than 5 minutes, and we have Tim Henry, Tony Kirsch, Connor, we have several left to testify, so if you have any new information, because we do have your written testimony, sir.
Thank you, Senators. I've got this high enough you can hear me well enough. A lot of attention's been on the why. Within our document that we've shared with you, I don't think our experience has been negative to the state with the investment in the people that we've hired and we're continuing to hire. I also would share the view that economic growth is a more important priority than reducing the tax rates. So I'm interested to take any questions then.
Wonderful. I don't want to put you on the spot, but so government picking winners and losers is more important than lowering the tax rates? Because that's what this does. Not everybody qualifies for these programs.
I'm not sure how to answer that question, Madam Chairperson. We were assisted in our economic growth. We met the criteria. We've far exceeded any commitments we made. So I think the last point would be that these programs do make an impact on where projects are located.
Okay. There's probably no chance you'll be here tomorrow, is there?
No, but I can come back if I
Well,
would be of assistance.
No, I'm a business person. Believe me, I wouldn't ask that of you. The time on the road is costly.
I'd
Any
be available
questions
by
for this
phone if there
conferee?
was any other questions you could do that way.
Okay, I don't think there's any other questions for
Okay.
you. Committee, I am going to suspend the hearing and we'll continue at first thing tomorrow. So that way, and I know there's a few conferees that are out of state, but I do want everybody to have the opportunity to be heard. So thank you very much. Yes. So committee, I will We won't close the hearing. We'll suspend the hearing until tomorrow morning. We'll continue it. I do plan to work bills tomorrow, so we are going to have a quick hearing. We do have a guest no, that's tomorrow. They'll be here tomorrow. Is there any other business to be brought before the committee? Seeing none, we're adjourned. Thank you.